my brother were both engineers. Nasir, I'm a mechanical engineer, and Nadir, who's an electrical engineer. But I'll let him tell the story of, kind of our first interaction with our first kind of engineering mentor that kind of also was the next stage. And that did occur when we were at Berkeley Institute.
Yeah, I think, just, after, so my mother worked in the bank, and so she came across a number of individuals in her profession. And one individual she came across was a gentleman named Greg Swan, who was an avid engineer, a mentor to many in Bermuda, primarily in the electrical engineering space through telecoms and electricity. And he was a client of my mom's. And one day she just asked him, "Hey, would you mind taking my sons to show them what you do?" At the time, Greg Swan was working at Belco at the time. And my understanding is that he was always one to open arms, kind of receive individuals with these type of requests. And so, at about 15, 16 years old, maybe even younger, we took Mr. Swan up on his invitation to come to Belco, and he showed us around. He showed us, inside the plant. He showed us around Belco. He told us a little bit what he did, and really just kind of lit that flame that our mother and father had already kind of stoked a little bit. And that kind of opened our eyes to the potential opportunities. And, that was the start. And, that had a significant impact on our journey. And
how did you decide mechanical and electrical?
Number one, when you kind of decide what you want to do, you think you know what that profession does.
Correct.
And, I thought mechanical engineers were like mechanics. Like, I was going to be fixing cars, and I thought I was going to be fixing bikes. I thought I was going to be fixing airplanes. I thought I was going to be, hands-on working on these things. So for me, I remember my brother and I, we were probably about 12 or 13. Or 14. We took my sister's V80 apart, and we couldn't put it back together properly, right? Or the same way. And, just tinkering around the house. So I think, just tinkering with things that put me more in a mechanical space. And I'm not quite sure what put my brother in an electrical space. I never asked him the question.
Yeah, I actually don't know, to be honest. I think it was electricity you can't see. You're told not to touch it.
Why aren't Bermudians working?
Stay away from it. I remember at a young age, maybe doing some things that weren't the safest things to be doing to see how things worked. And I remember one summer I worked a number of different jobs, from delivering groceries to all sorts of things. But one summer I actually got a job as an electrician. And for the summer, you just apply to all these companies, and you shop around for a summer job when you're kind of 13, 14 years old. And one place I landed was for an electrician company, basically. And so that's where it started. Once I got an understanding for the electrician work, then it became electrical engineering beyond that. So it was a good start, and it wasn't a complete planned vision. It was really just taking opportunities as they came, with some level of I want to be in an engineering space, and then the rest just kind of figured itself out as we took different opportunities.
And I would say even before we got into like the technical realm, it was more about I thought looking back on it, it was just as important to know what you didn't like.
Correct.
But, like Nadir said, I remember, I think, like one summer, I remember vividly because he had to actually live with my aunt on Cedar Hill. Cedar Hill, Warwick, because the job that was available at the time was delivering vegetables. I think it was for Emeralds. And he had to, in order to take the job, he had to wake up at like 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m.
Yep, 4 a.m. in the morning. That's when while I did it, and maybe I enjoyed it for that summer, I recognized that waking up those type of ungodly hours wasn't for me. So what that meant is that I probably wouldn't be a person that liked shift work or working at night and certain types of work. And, in addition, we did construction.
Yep.
Nasir did HVAC. For example, working for, was it BAC?
Both BAC and Aircare at one particular time. Just, again, being a young person, just trying to find your path, and a job that I didn't really enjoy that kind of set me like, hey, I know I want to be in this technical realm. I was grateful for the job. Was working at International Sports Shop, and but what I thought was as a salesperson, standing up all day, greeting people, that stuff was okay, but it didn't pique my my brain. It wasn't of interest to me. But at least I understood at that moment that this isn't of interest to me. And however, great skills picked up. And what I would say is it didn't change my approach to the job. No matter what job I ever went in, I always wanted to do it to the best of my ability. I always wanted to make sure that the person who gave me the job, because I was grateful that they were giving me opportunity to learn things that I had never experienced, whether I liked it or not. Mm-hmm. So even in doing the things that I didn't like, and I still preach that to young people today who I mentor, it's not about the liking something. It's about putting your best foot forward. So I think in everything that I've always done, regardless if I liked it or not, it was always my mindset to put my best foot forward, because I always wanted to do my parents proud. I always wanted someone to go back to my parents or my grandparents and say, hey, your son or your grandson swept the floor the best that I've ever seen. And that's kind of what I preach, because you can learn something in any task. You can learn patience. You can learn perseverance. You can learn what it takes to do backbreaking work so that you appreciate the people that are out there doing this day in and day out. And all of those lessons along the way have kind of like shaped our journey. And then it was, after that was some interesting things in high school. We were avid athletes as well. So from young, we had to manage our time, I would say. Academics was key in my house. However, football was, I would say, at some point was our love. Nadir was a great midfielder, and I was a avid striker. Most people who are of a certain age, they know us as the twins from Somerset, who played for Somerset Trojans, who basically played football very well. And eventually that led to that's how the kind of engineering story kind of started. But it's interesting how we went from athletics to college and then come back around to the engineering and technical world all over again. So
yeah, I think that story is actually is interesting, but it's also telling. And so when we were probably about 10 years old, Mr. Keith Tucker, who's also he's a Somerset man, Somerset family. He was actually good friends with my father growing up. They grew up on West Side Road in Somerset. And Keith Tucker would come back to Bermuda for many, many years. He was the coach of Howard University for over 20 years. And he would come back to Bermuda and recruit players. But he would come back with a sales pitch very early on across Bermuda for many years. And he came with that same sales pitch that he had sold to many Bermudians even before us. And the sales pitch was something like this. This is at like 10 years old. Hey, and this is done at Somerset Cricket Club, right? And so he's giving the same sales pitch to all those that will listen, not just in Somerset, but across Bermuda. And the sales pitch was, hey, you all are very good at football. It's a number of you. in about 7 years or 8 years, you're going to be at collegiate age. And I'll be coming back here, if I'm still in the job, and I'll be looking for the same good players that I see, and the ones that actually have the grades and the academic acumen to be able to make it through collegiate sport and the academics. Those are the ones that I'm actually going to take and offer scholarships to. And so he delivered that to us at about 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah, definitely about 10 or 11.
Yep. And about 6 years later, he came knocking on the doorstep, came back to Bermuda and asked who's available, who can avail themselves, who has the academics, who's still in the game and performing well at a high level and can actually play D1 football. And he offered us scholarships. The telling part, and it's not to disparage any of my friends or my colleagues, but the disparaging part was my brother and I were the only ones fully able to take advantage of that opportunity, at least inside from Somerset's perspective. Maybe there were others that came after us from other clubs as well, but I can tell you in my cohort of friends, we were the only ones that were able to take that opportunity and completely move forward. Some of it had to do with interests, that we were actually interested in going to college, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were actually prepared, right? And Berkeley and our parents and our support systems had a lot to do with that. So it was a very planned approach. I think my parents understood that, hey, we've got 3 kids in school. We're working class people. My mom worked in a bank. My dad was a technician at BTC, and he also worked for Marine Imports at one time. And their view was, we're going to have 3 kids in college relatively at the same time. And so, the idea that we're just going to be able to just pay for education for everyone isn't a reality. And so I think they planted those type of seeds without saying it, and prepared us, but also prepared themselves to be able to have what I would say is pretty much debt-free education from their kids, right? And so it was a very much planned approach. But Keith Tucker, have a lot of time, respect, and love for that man, because he didn't just give that opportunity to us. You go across Bermuda, and he gave that to many for a period of 20 years plus.
Is he still at Howard?
No, he's now retired from Howard University. But the current coaches are people that we went college with. And in fact, I think the head coach is married to a Bermudian, if I remember correctly. And he was actually one of my my travel roommates when we would travel from city to city playing football. And he's been to Bermuda a million times. So again, the connections are still there, and there's a network of us who try to find Bermudians to kind of get back into the kind of college football realm. And if we see someone that wants to go to Howard, we make those connections and things like that. It's all about connections. So, that's kind of how our journey went from, being young people to now being to an age of like maybe around, 18,
So
19.
when did you start at Howard?
So we started at Howard in 2000. Yeah, 2000. And it was great. It was a fantastic experience. Keith Tucker not only recruited us, but he recruited my older sister. She had no intentions of going to Howard at all. And I remember she was having some challenges. She had gone to Bermuda College, where she didn't ultimately apply herself at first, and my parents made her pay the price for that. But that's her own story to tell one day. But she eventually became a doctor. But she actually, Keith Tucker, knowing that my brother and I had already kind of almost committed to going to Howard University, my sister already had, I think, 2 or 3 years under her belt up at Bermuda College, and she had a lot of credits to transfer. And Keith Tucker said, "Hey, Nadia, why don't you think about coming Howard as well?" So my sister actually started Howard 2 years before us. So 98, she actually convinced my parents to let us go in 2000 because
Straight out of school.
we were coming straight out of high school. And my parents were, my mom specifically was a little bit nervous, I guess, about letting her little boys go off into this big world. But my sister actually convinced my mom that we were mature enough to be able to handle it. And then she was like, well, you know, I'm going to be there anyway. So, or she was already there. So my mom accepted that, and everything worked out. So 2000 to relatively 2004. And what I do want to make note of, we both did not originally get into engineering. We got rejected from the Howard engineering programs initially,
and then transferred in, right? And then it's a pretty common story coming from Bermuda, right? And I'm not here to make controversy or shed light on lesser thans, but the truth of the matter was, at the time, you have two strong academic young men.
Black man.
Yep, graduating from Berkeley Institute. So, we both graduated within the top 3 of our class, right?
My brother was valedictorian. So Nadir was valedictorian of the Berkeley graduating class of 2000.
Yeah, so, top in math, top in English, top in all these subjects, very good at mathematics, but in some elements, lack of exposure, right? And the lack of exposure had a lot to do with the curriculum at the time, in that typically in order to get into like calculus-based mathematics, you would actually have to take A levels and all these things, and some of it was more. It wasn't just the system; it was also decisions, right? And so because we were so into athletics and sports. While we had top grades in the base mathematics and the base system, in order to get into an engineering program, you actually had to have already basically had some exposure to calculus and pre-calculus. And so if you weren't taking A levels at that time and taking them seriously, and at the time we went to Berkeley, there was a choice of whether you could take them or not. And you actually had to pay for the exams, right? So it was actually a financial thing as well. And so if you didn't, and when you studied for those exams, you typically studied after school to prepare for those type of exams. And so without the significant exposure to calculus and pre-calculus, before we went to university, we actually tested, and we tested well, but their thing is, but not good enough for engineering, basically.
And I don't think we both scored a little bit low on the SAT at the time, so it didn't qualify us to get into engineering. However, Curtis Landy, who was the assistant coach for Howard University football team, Curtis Landy, he said, look, we got a plan. You guys are going to come do some other courses. I think we registered in human development
and education.
Education and human development, which actually taught us a number of things.
Helps me today.
Yeah, I think public speaking, all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't have done as an engineer or engineering student. And that was our first year. That was probably like one of my first and my last years at Howard were like my favorite years, because the first year, you're kind of exploring yourself. You're meeting new people from all over, and we played on the athletics team, so we knew all the other athletes and things like that. So Howard was a fantastic experience. And after a year, both of us had already done pretty well. We were able to transfer into engineering at that time, and also, because our grades were so high, we were able to apply for Bermuda government scholarships, which was an interesting time, because it was the year 2000. And again, Colonel, I'm like you a little bit. I just tell it like it is. If you remember, the PLP government would have won in 1998. And I know prior to that year, majority of the scholarships at that time, the government scholarships, were going to people who could actually afford to go to college. That was just I'm just going to say it like it is. That's how it was. And you can pick the burns out of that. But during during 2000, when we went to school, I think our GPAs were like 3.9 or something like that. We were athletes and things like that. And although we had football scholarships, they were partial scholarships. And we then both got Bermuda government scholarships. Again, my parents had 3 kids in school at the same time, and we knew my sister wanted to be a doctor. So that was going to be a long haul. So, the Bermuda government scholarships really played a key role in kind of our journey as well, because it actually made our college education affordable, and we were able to focus, on our schoolwork ultimately. So, that put us into engineering. That was a tough road. Engineering was a tough road from an academic space.
Yeah, most times people don't transfer into engineering. They actually transfer out of engineering. So the first day you show up at engineering school, and all these schools do this, they tell you, look beside you and look around your room. Basically.
I'll never forget that day.
Yeah, and every engineering school does this because it's just a fact. I don't think they're trying to scare you. They're really trying to give you the reality. And so they say, look around on both sides. The person to your right and the person to the left of you immediately will not be here in 3 months, basically, right? And sure enough, after that first semester, they're correct. Pretty much, I would say probably a good 40 to 50% of the students that enroll in engineering basically,
this is not for me.
Yeah, they basically opt out, basically, and here it is. We're basically opting in, right? And so, engineering is not for the faint of heart, but if you have a good foundation and you're willing to work, typically if you're good at mathematics, science, specifically physics, and applying mathematics, you like building stuff, tinkering stuff. And you want to understand processes and complex ideas in terms of not just mathematics, but how to step your way through problem solving, then engineering becomes for you. And
I didn't even look at it like that, to be honest. All that stuff's to me, the technical aspect. I always just, I wanted to do what others didn't dare to do, to be honest with you. And I remember setting my mind on actuary, science, or engineering once I found out that, hey, wow, a lot of people don't take this route. And I kind of wanted to take the path of less chosen or less traveled. And I think with anything, if you have the grit and the perseverance, and
discipline.
Any discipline. That, I think that was the number one discipline. My mom in primary school, we used to study 1 hour a day in primary school.
After school.
After school. It was about maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour. And that 1 hour wasn't like study. It was like, hey, you don't have any homework, you're going to go read a book. And the book's just giving me to read W.E.B. Du Bois and Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. And looking back on it, I'm saying, man,
African civilization.
Yeah. You know how my mama was, Colonel.
Yes, I do.
Man, but, when we were in primary schools, they were child-appropriate books, but that was what she had us studying. And I don't want to forget something. The other person who had a major impact on me was Paulo Camarafuego, Roosevelt Braun, for those who may not know that language. But when I was probably about 8, my mom, she was good friends with Roosevelt Braun, and she took us to his house a couple times. It just blew my mind at 8 years old. I never walked into a house where it was just books and literature everywhere. And he told us stories about how he traveled around the world doing engineering. He was the first engineer that we ever met. I think that's where the spark, if I'm thinking back on it, that's where the first little twinkling hit. Because it's funny because I knew from their stories, I went to find out that he worked for United Nations and he traveled all around the world. And when I finished engineering, the first jobs I applied for were at the United Nations
Yeah.
because of that interaction at like 7 or 8 years old, and just seeing, I don't even know what captivated my imagination so much, but he had stories about digging.
Seemed like an adventurer, you know.
Yeah.
He made engineering sound like an adventure, and it actually is.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what you're doing, it is an adventure. You're never doing the same thing twice, and so yeah, I actually forgot about that, and yeah, that was very telling.
He was a
very
unique
influential.
Bermudian.
He was definitely a unique Bermudian. I mean, travels to Cuba during the Revolutionary Age, and these are the stories that he told. He was talking to my mom in general, but it was all sinking into our little 7, 8-year-old brains, and it's like, hey mom, what that man does? Oh, he's an
does
engineer.
engineering, and he travels around the world, and he built stuff, and that just sounded awesome to us as well. Yeah.
And another interesting thing I would say is since we're talking about our college experience, was when we finished with our bachelor degrees. All right. Again, story oppressive.
Well, you're skipping a step.
tell me what that is.
Before we, or maybe I'm wrong. Was it? Yeah, I think we were still in our bachelor's degrees, and we were studying engineering, and our mother tells us to go see this politician. He may have an engineering job for us.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where our relationship
I skipped
begins.
that. I skipped that step.
Right, very important step.
No, that's a very good one. That's a very good
step
one.
and a very important individual.
She said you were engineers.
No, she not quite yet. Not quite yet. We weren't quite engineers yet. And I remember because my brother and I came up with a game plan, of which Colonel, because that person was you. And we came up with this game plan about how we were going to say no to you offering us any type of opportunity.
It didn't matter what you was offering us. We weren't taking it because we already had this elaborate plan in our head of what we were going to do.
Yep. I don't even know what our option was, but we were like, whatever his offering is not going to be good enough, basically, right? And lo and behold, you actually offered us our first real engineering opportunity in terms of employment. And, because usually you go to summer jobs and, like I said, I was doing electrician work, and I'm changing electrical receptacles and lights and all those type of things. And that's great. And I'm learning a lot, in terms of using my hands and all that. But in terms
that was important.
That was important. And it gave me a lot of skills, but ultimately, our plan to reject anything you offered, kind of went away like almost immediately. You said, I'm offering you I'm offering you engineering jobs. See you on Monday. And we're like, but we're supposed to say no, type of thing, right? And so, yeah, that's it will be it would do it an injustice to say that you didn't have a significant influence on our lives and our careers.
And I think while we're on this subject, I think it's important to figure out like the impact that had, because the opportunity that you gave us, I know Nadir's been integral in the Belco apprenticeship program, which has been around for a number of years. But I know when him being at Belco, that's something that he took on because, and I would imagine it's the same reason why I do what I do in the government. So for people out there, Nasir Wade here, I'm COO for Public Works. Trying to get serve the people of Bermuda in that capacity. I'm also the plant manager for Tynes Bay. So that you understand the context of where I'm coming from. And in my capacity for government, when they say summer students, I'm on everybody to make sure we're getting our Bermudian students opportunities to explore careers so that they can see what they like and what they don't like. So that they can actually have real opportunities to not just put on their resume, but so that they can make decisions with their lives. So, sometimes, people may say I manipulated or I influence or whatever, but I'm strong on making sure that we create those opportunities. And the reason is because people like yourself did it for me, Colonel. And it wasn't just you, Colonel. There was many people also who gave us an opportunity to figure ourselves out, figure out where we want to go, and figure out how we're going to contribute to Bermuda in the long run.
Yeah, and give us and real experience, not like come here and file some papers.
Yeah.
Like you put us with pretty much the colleagues that we work with today. I had to the other day. My brother was telling me how he had to remind Stephen Tucker.
He was our first
first real engineering boss,
Yeah.
and now we sit as colleagues working with Stephen, right, in a myriad of ways, right, and so it's always a way of paying it forward, and I think we have to pay homage to people like yourself who open up those doors, because when you open up those doors, it becomes an example as to what we are required to do. It's not a choice. It's what we're required to do. It's what we should do. It's doing the right thing.
And when we're not doing it, I'm first to challenge people. Not in a bad way. Just, I ask them one quick question that always seems to put people on the back foot, but they understand. I say, hey, maybe it's not a question, it's a statement. I say, hey, don't forget somebody did this for you. How did you get here today? You didn't get here on your own. Somebody did this for you. And now that you're in the position to do it for someone else, you can't just close that door. So, right now, at Times Bay, Colonel, I learned from you. When everybody else is saying no, I say yes. Give me more. And Colonel used to drop summer students on me all the time. And again, not everyone went on to work in this field, but a number of them did. And for me, they also went on to understand. I've had students who I took on for technical work who said, hey, I want to be an actuary. I said, okay. Well, we're going to put you on a path. What path? How are we going to put you on that path? And if they come with a plan, that makes it even easier for me to extend my hand to say, okay, you have a plan. Let me help you on your way. And I think that's what's important that you taught us.
It's called village work.
That's what it's called, village work.
It's called village work.
Correct. Village work.
All the villagers should be doing that.
Correct. And if each village
That's a matter of course.
Yep.
No driveway.
Correct.
Make a difference.
Make a difference.
Correct. But it's a beautiful thing to see, and so that was an important step in the journey, and that was still while we were kind of on the cusp of finishing our undergraduate degrees, and then trying to make decisions on whether we should pursue a master's degree, basically. We both finished up relatively the same time. We were student athletes, so doing engineering and sports, that's a serious thing at the same time. When everyone else you're traveling on a bus for 10, 12 hours for 3 years, studying every weekend, when maybe your teammates, when they go out on a Friday night because you're in a new town, you go to your room and study, and that's where we talk about the discipline comes in. And so that was, but it wasn't just discipline; it was also preparation, right? Study habits, right? And so when my mother was at 8, 9, 10 years old, saying read a book for an hour, even if sometimes it was just sitting at the table, right? And I'll get to this, right?
Yeah, I know where you're getting to.
Yeah, we'll sit at the table, and my mom saying, read a book if you don't have any homework. Well, the thing is that my mom actually wasn't even home. She was still at work. So when we're at home reading the book, how is she going to know that we read the book? Well, she'll come and maybe quiz us on the book, but we're picking up a book we probably read last week, basically, right? So we think we're gaming the system, but at the end of the day, when my mom came, you bet your boots we were at that table, because if you weren't at that table, it's a price to pay, right? And so what I realized in hindsight as I got older is that that actually gave us the discipline to sit down. So when we heard the car coming up the driveway, we would run to that table so fast. But the truth is that we actually had already been sitting there for maybe a half an hour, because we weren't exactly sure when she was going to come into the door, and we wanted to be prepared, right?
Right.
And so...
And that actually then grew into, when we got to high school, that 1 hour every day turned into a little bit longer. Okay, we'll knock out whatever we needed to do, but, you know, we may take a little bit longer, but now we're learning study habits. So when we got into engineering, I kid you not, you know, because it was such a challenge, and we were not as prepared as our, you know, friends and from the south of us down in the Caribbean, Trinidad, Jamaica. Those people came prepared. They already knew their first 2 years of engineering already. They actually knew they already had been exposed to high level calculus and physics already. So we were already starting at a little bit of a deficit. So the only thing we could do after that is work hard. That's all we could do after that. And the study habits played a big role. So my kids now, are 8, you know, 6 and 3. But my 8 and 6-year-old, hey, I changed the script a little bit from my mom, but I didn't change it, and dad, but I didn't change a lot. Hey, first thing you do when you come home, you're gonna get yourself a little snack.
Yep.
I understand you may need some fuel to keep the brain working. You're gonna then empty your bag. Then you're gonna go sit down and kind of do some homework. And you know, when I looked at my daughter's report cards, you know, 5 days ago, I'm not big on the report cards. I want them to enjoy themselves and have fun and all of that. But when I did look at the report card, I literally said, hey, this recipe still works. That's what I really said. I said, this recipe still works. And I think what we forget sometimes in Bermuda is that we're going to be, we didn't just add a pinch of salt here, or we didn't improve the recipe in a lot of ways. I think we said, oh, that recipe needs to go out the window.
It's outdated.
It's outdated, and we need a totally different recipe. But for any recipe, if you want to, you can alter a recipe. But to throw the recipe out the window, I'm not throwing that recipe out the window. And I'm pretty unapologetic about that my mom and dad, they cultivated something that works. You know, I'm not, you know, and I see it because in my life, I see it that I'm able to go out and help others. I think that's the main key.
That's the key, the village work, right?
Yeah, the village work.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I guess beyond that, we then decided, contrary to actually some advice that we had been given, to not do master's degrees, because it was like, in this day and age, who does a master's degree? Well, this is in 2025.
Well, I actually want to pick up on some, because we were so sure about what we wanted to do, we actually turned on, I guess, the apprenticeship programs from Balco.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That was a key moment in being sure about what we wanted to do. And I remember Balco sent someone to our high school and said, hey, here's these great jobs and these great opportunities. Well, we had already met Roosevelt Braun. We had met Greg Swan at that time. And when they presented it, it was great. We did the exams. We both scored really high. We were in for the Balco apprenticeship program. And I remember my brother was there. We were in Barclay Library. And the Balco gentleman said, hey, he gave his presentation. And we asked one question. He was an engineer, and we knew we wanted to do engineering. Does this program make us engineers? And he said, what do you mean? And we said, very simple. Will I be what you are?
After the 4 years of that.
And the gentleman was not Bermudian. I remember that at the time. He was not a Bermudian.
Yeah, and
Right.
he said, no, you won't.
He said, no, you won't.
And we said, no, thank you.
And we said, no, thank you.
And then it's kind of funny because I actually, everyone knows, people may know, I'm a managing director at Belco. I'm here in my own capacity. Let me say that. I don't want to hear any Belco rants today. What was like even now, I go and when people want to say, oh, maybe you're afraid to use your hands, you're an engineer, and this, I tell people all the time, you know I was chosen for the Belco apprenticeship. So I always joke with my workers at work who, say, oh, you're just in the office, just an office guy, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, hold up. I took the same test you took, and I was chosen, and they were only picking 2 or 3 people that year, right? And so I just make it clear that at that young age of 16, 17, we actually knew what we wanted, right? Through a myriad of different avenues, journeys, and influences.
And experiences.
But we knew that, and guess what? And that's a great path for many individuals, right? And it provides a great livelihood. It's very much needed in Bermuda and all those things. But it wasn't what we wanted to do, right? And so,
and that makes me big on trying to make sure that, like, when young people come to me, most of the time they just come and say, I just want a job. It's actually young and old people. I want a job.
I'll do anything.
I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Colonel, I'm not the anything person. Like you
There's
come
no job
to me.
called anything.
No.
There's no job called anything. There's no life lesson in just anything. But what is it that you're passionate about?
Drives you.
I want to know all these things. So most of the time, if a young or old person comes to me, I've sent many. I don't want to say old. I mean older. And Colonel says I'm young, but Colonel not young anymore. Like I'm not that young anymore. Kind of the mid-range now. But people call me Unc now a little bit. So but. My thing is,
It's better than Pops.
we'll get there. We'll get there soon enough.
yes, if Allah
God willing.
Yeah. So, but I'm not the anything guy. Like me and my brother discuss this all the time. You're not going to come to us and say, I just need anything. Because, my thing is, okay, you're going to come sit down in my office and we're going to go through what you're interested in. We're going to go through what you're passionate about.
What don't you like?
What don't you like?
If you like, for example, you don't like the hot sun. I did construction with my uncle for 2 years in the bleeding hot sun. And I knew that I didn't want to be in the hot sun all day long.
As a laborer.
I'm not afraid of hard work. I love to get out and do landscaping and all these on my own personal time.
Yeah.
Right? But I really didn't like the idea that, this is where I'm
Having
going
to
to
do.
be. Yeah, this is where someone's going to tell me where I need to be all day.
But we have friends. I have a friend who loves that.
Yeah.
He loves, we call him,
call him cement.
Cement, we call him crack cement because he loves it so much, to be honest with you. Like, he loves that. He loves hard work. And we look at him and say, wow, like, who would enjoy this? But that's what that's what he's passionate about. That's what he loves to do. He loves that. So, there's a path for everyone. And my big thing is, what do we do today to get you on your path? And then we'll get back into that because, I guess hopefully we could get to that in the last hour. So we better speed up the story a little bit more.
What's that?
Just the, my work that I do also at Bermuda College.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, so in speeding up the story, I think we did master's degrees. Through that master's degree process, we both had different challenges. Those challenges basically, prepared us for the fire, essentially. And the master's degree, what it taught us beyond just discipline engineering, taught us how to research. It taught us how to go out there and do higher level analysis, processes, all these things, right? And so it had a huge benefit. And the view was very simple. It was that get a master's degree, get work experience, don't come back to Bermuda begging for a job, right? That was the idea, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the time, the majority of the engineers in Bermuda at that particular time actually were not Bermudian. They were from overseas. And so the idea was that, we don't want to be begging for a job. We should be walking into an opportunity and almost, you're kind of lucky to have me, right? With still being humble and not with the arrogance, right? But kind of knowing our worth, I would say. Right?
Yeah, and there were other mentors along the way. Like for me, kind of through that journey, Kirk Otterbridge, who's still my boss today. He took. We met his brother in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
He had a brother who passed away,
yeah.
but he played a major role in our time when we were at Howard University, and he made some introductions for myself to Mr. Otterbridge when I was still in college.
You actually met Kirk at his funeral.
Yeah. I think we did.
Yeah.
We did. No, we met Kirk before that, but or at least we knew about him before that. I think I met him in Bermuda, and then later on, that's when we really solidified our relationship. And Mr. Otterbridge, once his brother kind of put him in the know that there's engineers out here, he really took time to kind of guide us in what we would need to come back to Bermuda, what we would need, and there were other people along the way. But for me, Kirk was a big mentor. Again, he took the time to kind of reach out. It was interesting. He did offer me a job before when I finished my bachelor's degree, and said, you don't need that master's degree. You could come back to Bermuda. You'll be okay. But once again, I knew what I wanted. And Nadir had already gone off to do his master's. And I remember I was kind of in between. And my mom, she put a little pressure on me. And she said, hey, I'm willing to help you with your master's degree financially, but you better go within the next year. And if you don't, you could still go later, but I just won't help you financially. And Nadir was already doing his master's degree, and I had to sit down and think what I really wanted at that time. And I said, okay, I'm going to go do my master's degree as well. So that worked out pretty well. But I think even another interesting thing about kind of knowing where you want to go, another village raising person, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Larry Hunt. Larry Hunt, Somerset Cricket Club. Mr. Hunt's probably coached every player who's been through Somerset Cricket Club
for the last 40 years.
And I'm talking every single player he's probably touched. Nadir and I, we both were coaches in the Somerset football program for a long time. And it's that example in Larry Hunt. But a funny, interesting story with Mr. Hunt was when we graduated from our bachelor's degrees, Mr. Hunt, and this still amazes me to today. When we graduated from Howard University with our bachelor's degrees, he shows up at our house. He was my mailman at the time, I think still. And he brings this little plastic bag, Ziploc bag. And he says, hey, go through this bag and look for your name. I was quite startled. Like, what's Mr. Hunt talking about? So we go through this little plastic bag. We find our name. We open up this small sheet of paper. My name is Nasir Wade. I'm 8 years old. I want to be a mechanical engineer or a professional football player.
Well,
I don't even remember writing that.
Yeah.
Dan, Nadir?
Yeah, just same thing, just electrical engineer. That's the only difference.
I'm Nadir Wade. I'm 8 years old. I want to be an electrical engineer or a professional football player. How does that happen? Yeah. And this man kept it too. He kept these things
for like 25 years. 20 years.
20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he brought it to our house just to show us how intentional, I guess, we were at such an early age. And that blew our minds because I don't remember writing it. I do remember thinking it, but I don't remember writing it, to be honest with you. And to think it, write it, and execute it, I mean, it was. But what was, and again, I don't want to be disheartening, but what was disheartening was we then went through all my other friends. And, you know, we were from I'm going to be real, we were from the generation where gang violence started in Bermuda. Right? That's when gang violence really started. Right? My friends were the ones who were getting into that the first days. All right? So, you know, looking through the names and looking at just dreams deferred, that was a little bit disheartening. But when we look at, again, and a lot of them have, you know, taken time now, they're all mature now and whatnot, and
making better decisions,
and the lives are a lot better for it. But it was a lot of dreams deferred, and seeing that also impacts what I think the village kind of needs to do today, you know, which is why I don't care. And I did it to two young boys here 2 days ago. They were working at Watlington Waterworks. I pulled a Colonel Birch. I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" And one of them told me his name. I still remember his name. His name was Merdeel. I said, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life?" That little boy says, "I want to be an engineer. I'll just get my water refilled." I said, "You want to be an engineer?" I said, "I'm an engineer. I'm at Tynes Bay. Come find me. If he comes find me, I'll try to help him." You see what I'm saying? Like, we have to take that approach.
Yep.
The young people may not come to us, but if we speak to them and we communicate with them, I didn't know these boys from anywhere. But it all comes because, again, they may not know what path they want to be on, and it's getting too late in the game.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Or how to get there.
How to get there.
Yep. Yeah, and then the story continues. Postmasters, we go through challenges and struggles. That's for another story, another day. At least my personal story. You know, but yeah, and then the quest becomes: do you come back to Bermuda or do you go get experience, right? And the decision was, at least for me and for us, was to try to get experience overseas. At the time, the U.S., which they still have, but it's a different world, right? It's a different world in the U.S.
It's a Trump world.
Yeah, and this is very important. At the time, when we were getting out of school, that was becoming the Obama era a little bit, right? And so it was actually a beautiful time to be in America, for at least for a young black international, right? And so things were a lot more open, and the opportunities were actually there, but you actually had to hustle in order to get the opportunities. And I say hustle because you know, sometimes I wonder about the hustle. I think we have a hustle mentality in Bermuda, but the type of hustle that I mean is when I'm talking about you're hunting, not just for employment and work, but you're basically, if a door is not open, then I'm jumping through a window. If a window is not open, I'm kind of, you know, trying to find my opportunity, right? And
we had to learn that.
Yeah, we had to learn
that. We didn't have that type of hustle. I'm not talking about the street hustle. That's not what we're talking about.
Colonel, we came to you. Mama said, go to Colonel, and you said, here's a job, right? So in Bermuda, sometimes you don't always get that hustle, but what we recognize is that our friends from down south, from, you know, the Trinidadians, the Jamaicans, the Barbados,
we could learn so much.
These individuals had hustle. Like, you know, you would ask, hey, what are you doing for the summer? In Bermuda, what we say, oh, yeah, I'm just going home. You got a job? Yeah, I got a job, you know, working. You know, you could be working, delivering, like I did, delivering vegetables, making, you know, $25 an hour, basically.
As a young person.
As a 18-year-old.
So you think you're in the money?
Yeah.
That's number one. You think you're in the money and life is great.
And you kind of are in the sense of being a 18-year-old making $25 an hour.
No real responsibilities.
You're taking half your money at the end of the week and you're going partying, right? Our friends from down south didn't have that luxury. First of all, a lot of them couldn't afford to go back home.
Right.
basically. So they actually had to hustle in the U.S. to find internships, to find employment over the summer and breaks. And what we learned by watching them was what it actually requires if you actually want real opportunity to go knocking on doors, sitting on doorsteps, making calls, all those type of things. And through that experience, we ended up getting employment, basically, right? And so I think I knocked around the U.S. for about 6 to 7 months, doing like probably about 20 interviews a day before I got my first opportunity. And the first opportunity, which is very important, the first opportunity I got, it was actually a gentleman, a white gentleman, who was doing his PhD while I was doing my master's at Howard. So you got this white man at Howard who's doing his PhD, and he
Which,
ended up,
again, the reason it's interesting.
It doesn't
Howard's a
happen.
HBCU, and is not that many.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen that often where you got a lot of Caucasian people at Howard University.
They have to choose.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you have to choose to be there, and he chose specifically to be there.
Correct. And so this gentleman named Bill Allen, he was in some of my classes. And what I came to find out in doing classes with him is that he actually had his own company, a very successful company, right? Out in Maryland, out in Columbia, Maryland, called Allen and Sharif. And I remember him coming to me because he knew I had graduated my master's, and I was working with him while he was doing his PhD. And he was like, Nadir, like, you're a smart kid, you know. Do you have a job, basically? And I'm like, no, actually, Bill, I'm an international student. I actually don't have a job. And so Bill basically said, look, tell you what, you may not know this, but I own a company type of thing. He says, I'm not going to interview you. He says, I'm going to send you out to my people, and they're going to interview you. We do have an opening for an opportunity. You know, if you interview with the manager and they like you, they'll bring you on, basically. And I said, hey, but I need a work permit type of thing. He said, don't worry about that. Go see if you do well in the interview. I interviewed with the people. The hiring manager reported back to him, like, we like this guy, we want to hire him. And Bill Allen stuck to his word, and he basically did a work permit for me, right? And paid for the immigration lawyer and all these type of things, right? And so, you know, just that grit and grind of not being, of sticking with it, it's like almost you make your own lock sometimes.
Yeah.
And so lock opened up for me, and I ran through that door. Now, let me show you how the door quickly changes. I work for this company, Allen and Sharif. Well, first of all, in order to get to this job, first of all, I didn't have a car, right? I couldn't afford a car, basically, right? And so I really wanted a job inside the city, right? So I can use public transportation. And so this job was about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. I had no car, and the train really didn't get you there. There was literally one commuter bus. It almost sounds like a story from the 1960s, right?
When I used to see you actually doing it, I used to be like, wow, this is like you're taking a journey from like back in the day. But go ahead,
yeah, this
finish
is
the
what
story.
you have to do, right? So the job was like an hour away. I make 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's only one method of transportation to not only one method, there's only one time slot to get out to this job, basically. Right?
Get to the job and back.
And back.
Yeah.
So there's only one opportunity. So basically, I have to catch this bus. It only leaves at like something like 6 in the morning or like 5:45 in the morning.
Something.
And it only comes back at 5 p.m. One bus. That's your only option. Otherwise, you're stuck, and it's going to take you about 4 hours to get. Basically, take me about 3-4 hours to get home. And so I remember 1 or 2 days. You know, I missed the bus. I had to take a day off. I had to take a vacation day, basically, because I couldn't. I missed the bus, right? And so it was like an hour-long bus ride, and then it was a 30-minute walk to work. So I get off the bus, and then I still have to walk another 30 minutes to get to this one opportunity that I have for this job opportunity in the U.S. basically.
But it wasn't just like a walk on a sidewalk. If I remember, you had to like jump a fence, walk through a field.
Yeah, it was a journey.
I'd actually never been out there to his job because, again, getting out there was, I was still in finishing up my master's. But I remember watching, the grit and the determination and the discipline in order to be able to kind of, deliver, and kind of make a way for his career. And, I remember sitting on the sideline saying, man, how's this guy doing this?
You do what you got to do if you're willing to do it.
Yep.
And you can see the long division, right? And so I was getting up at like 4 a.m. to make work at like 8 o'clock, basically, right? And this is in snow. This is not like in the perfect weather, right? And so. And that's why I say it's a story out of the 1960s when you heard, I used to walk miles to go to work and all that, I kind of got a little taste of that, right? And so, but the interesting part is I did that job, and this actually changed my perspective in a positive way. And I say I have to highlight in a positive way. 9 months to a year after I started that job, and it was an entry-level electrical engineering design job for like companies that build like hospitals, hotels, all these type of things, commercial buildings, all these type of things. And essentially, I was made redundant in that job after 12 months, basically. You recall you had the 2008 recession. So the 2008 recession came, knocked everything down. The guy, Bill Allen, who owned the company, who was on his way to retirement, getting a PhD so he could become a professor, actually had to come back to work to do my job. But guess what? The day I walked out of that company, people who had worked there for 40 years walked out the exact same day as me, right? And I don't say that to say that the company was crap and all that. No, the guy, Bill Allen, was a genuine person. This man had built a successful business and had to come back to work to do my job as an entry-level person because the recession had hit so hard. And that experience, it didn't jade me about, companies just do this and don't care about people. No. What it did, it showed me that you always have to be prepared for life, for the pivot, for change. And when one door closes, another window opens.
Yep.
And that's what actually happened through that experience, because then I went on to work inside of a power plant inside Washington, D.C., where I only had to literally go down one street, catch one bus, less than 10 minutes from my house, working in a power plant that gave me the experience to actually be where I am today.
And, I just want to piggyback off of that since we're at that kind of phase, because this comes back to you again, Carl.
Let me just say one thing before we do that. We've talked for an hour and a bit. This is Bermuda Speaks for Wednesday, July 1st. In studio with me are twins Nadir and Nasir Wade, who are telling their story and giving examples to other young people in Bermuda about how they can follow the same route to achieve their goals. There have been a few calls. We'll talk for another 10 minutes or so, and then open the phone lines.
Yeah, sure. So the next, thing is comes back to you and kind of the journey and what it takes. But also, when you give somebody opportunity, you don't know how it's going to impact their life. So I also, because Nadir got into that power plant and he was doing such a great job, my resume was passed along, and he was walking across someone's office one day and they said, "Hey, this resume here, you're not a mechanical engineer. Is your name Nasir Wade?" And they said, No. He said, No, I'm not Nasir Wade. That's my twin brother, Nadir. But because he was doing such a great job, they wanted to interview me as well. I remember in the interview that I did, the work experience and the opportunity that I thought wouldn't have much impact ended up being what was really important to the U.S. federal government. And it was the job that you gave us in 2003 or 2002, whatever it was. And what my manager was interested in was that, oh my goodness, you have project management experience working within a government environment, doing exactly kind of what we need you to do. And it amazed me that being from this little island of Bermuda, that the opportunity that was given to me for that summer was what actually turned the tide. And it was like, yes, you have the work, you have the education experience, you have your master's degree. We don't even need a master's degree, but this work experience from back in 2003 ended up being what piqued my manager's interest at that time. And, he offered me the job right on the spot, to be honest with you. And, but it came right back around to you, Colonel, and the opportunity that you gave us because...
and you were going to say no.
And I was going to say no. And it was interesting because I remember now what I had been given another opportunity to work somewhere else, but it was going to be in their stores department, which wasn't a bad job, but it was a utility. I think it was Belco at the time, actually. And my thing was, if I go work in the stores department, I'll get my toe in the door, and then that will work out for me, and I'll get to engineering. But when you offered a real opportunity for project management and engineering and working with people who were in the technical field, it opened up a different world. 10 years later, it ended up being a major impact in my career trajectory. Right. So, we work for the U.S. federal government. And then I think we need to get to the point where we came back to Bermuda.
Yeah.
Right. And, we did about 4 years each out there, but we always knew we were going to come back to Bermuda. And we knew we wanted to come back to Bermuda, but what was interesting is what drove us back to Bermuda. And we had a mentor from Jamaica, a much older gentleman who took us underneath his wing. He had already run several businesses. He was I think the largest, I want to say one of the largest black accounting firms in America. So he was quite successful. And he used to take us out to brunch and literally say guys, tell me what you want to do. And we would talk about Bermuda all the time. And eventually one day he said, time out. It's time for you guys to go back to Bermuda. And our thing was, man, you're a
millionaire.
You're multi-millionaire in America.
From Jamaica.
You've made it here. Why are you sending us back to Bermuda? And he was really strong about it. And he said, everything you've told me says that you want to nation build. I had never even heard the concept of nation building, to be honest with you. And I said, well, we said, well, what do you mean nation build? He said, well, you want to do for your people. You want to carry Bermuda forward. You want to make sure education's correct. You want to make sure these things are going the right way. And he planted the seed of nation building, and that seed just grew and grew and grew and grew. And no matter what I did to try to push it off, it didn't work. It didn't work. And because of his influence, both Nadir and I basically made decisions, different times, but Nadir went first, and then I followed probably 6-7 months later. And Nadir did set up his future, where I remember when he came back, it was my idea to go back home first. And I remember he came back home for a visit. He said, I'm going to set up a meeting at Belco for myself. Very bold choices. He set up a meeting, not a job interview or anything. He set up a meeting, and I think they were so intrigued by his experience and his resume and his work in infrastructure and, the whole package in that meeting. I think 2 weeks after we came back, Belco said, hey, we don't have a position, but we're going to offer you a job.
Yep, correct.
Yeah,
correct. So, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think is the point about nation building. I think what we recognized in being in Washington D.C. very political environment, a lot of things going on. You learn a lot. You get a lot of exposure, some amazing mentors. The gentleman my brother mentioned, also Eugene Harvey was an amazing mentor as well. He lives in Maryland.
He used to make us come over and cut his grass for knowledge.
Yeah,
and we loved it.
Exactly, right? And so, but what we recognize is Bermuda had an office in D.C., and I remember one time the politicians in Bermuda couldn't make it because there was a hurricane in Bermuda, and there was a Congressional Black Caucus event, and Bermuda needed representation. And we went to this event on behalf of Bermuda as delegates, essentially, civilian delegates, essentially. And Obama was the speaker. Right before he became president.
Right before he became president.
And Bermuda was in the room, basically. Not only in the room, we were a focal point in the room. And we recognized the power that our country has and the ability to be seen in the world from on a global perspective, and then the impact that we could actually have that we wouldn't necessarily. We probably could have had the same a type of impact in the U.S., but it wouldn't have been as local or as impactful on our people, where they can see it, they can feel it, they can know it. And so that between those two events, on top of a push from the current Premier, David Burt, who one day jokingly said to us when he was actually back in Bermuda, and we were walking through Georgetown, and we happened to see him. He was on vacation, and he asked us, when are we coming back to Bermuda? And we looked at him like, coming back? And he was like, oh, you're those type of Bermudians that don't want to come back and give back.
We were teed right off.
That was like offensive.
It was a challenge. It was a challenge. He challenged us.
I recognized, we recognized in hindsight, he was putting that little push to challenge us, about what's our core values, right? And and today we're here, and we're doing the village work, right? We're involved in a lot of different things, but I'm very interested in hearing from your listeners and answering questions, and maybe get into some other topics if you have the time.
Yeah. Again, for me,
going quiet.
Okay, but I'll keep to it. For me, is some of the work that I'm doing, Nasir, chairman of Bermuda College Board, that came out of a suggestion and looking for a solution, and that was an interesting. So, I've been on the Bermuda College Board for a number of years, and what got me up there was at one point we were looking for technical staff for jobs that we had at Tynes Bay specifically, and Colonel, you were the minister then, and we had these great jobs for Bermudians, but at the time, no qualified people to fill that job. They were very special jobs, meaning that they required specific qualifications. And I remember my mentor and boss then, Kirk Otterbridge. Kirk said, hey, and Kirk was very wise. Kirk said, hey, I don't know where the problem is, but I believe the solution's at Bermuda College. So again, being bold and persistent, I said, well, this is all part of my nation building mantra, because if we didn't get Bermudians in these jobs, then we would have to bring in people. We had to do that. So my thing was, let me insert myself into the solution. So, I think I got myself on the National Training Board, and I also got myself on the Bermuda College Board. And some things just line up. Another individual, it's funny because when I tried to get myself on the board, another individual came to me and said, hey, they were looking for people for Bermuda College Board. I put your name forward. This is somebody I hadn't even talked to. So I'm like, oh, wow, the universe is really pushing me in this direction, and Mr. Otterbridge suggested that maybe I go up there for the solution, and I went up there, and what I ended up finding was another passion of mine, which again aligns with my the mantra of nation building, and it revolved around education. We had to fix some key things with education, not just up at Bermuda College. There were some things that were going on in the public school system or the school system in general that didn't quite align, and we had to fix them very quickly. So that's what we did. And now, although I'm probably one of the youngest people on the board, I'm also probably now one of the longest serving people on the board as well. And that culminated into becoming the chairman of the board. And, what I would say is that, I'm going to make a plug for Bermuda College, is that I don't think people still truly understand the jam that we have in Bermuda College. My brother, we sit on scholarship committees and all sorts of things. And, I'm a big advocate for people going to the schools that they want to go to. But I also want people to know that there's a great choice in Bermuda College. And Bermuda College is actually doing great work. I'm not saying that because I'm the chairman. I'm saying that because I know the work that we've been doing to make sure that the students up there are prepared to basically find their path. And ultimately, parents are, I see these stories where parents are paying, like even Howard University is about $70,000 now to go. And I don't even talk about housing and things like that. So it doesn't make any sense to me why people would be putting themselves in this economic burden. I know we want to do the best for our children, but it has to be some balance in it. I met kids, their tuition's $90,000 a year to study psychology. I'm not a gangster in Stanford or whatever, but my point is like, you can do your first years at Bermuda College for a fraction of that cost and get the quality of education of your first 2 years and the benefit to then go wherever you want to go, right? And that's what I'm kind of looking to push. I want people to really hone in. Bermuda College has been in the media a lot over the last probably 2 years for the success that the president and even the previous president, Dr. Green, she laid the foundation that we were able to jump off, and we have the new president and Dr. Sam, but the board is very committed. Again, it's all about nation building for me. So, if I had something to say to the people of Bermuda is, what does nation building mean to you? Does it mean that you sit on the sidelines? I'm not asking everybody to get as involved as I am, but I'm saying that you can't just sit on the sidelines and complain.
There's a role for everybody.
There's a role for everybody. Right. Your contributions needed.
Yep. And it's all interconnected. Whether it's industry, but it all starts with education. Education is why we're where we are, right? Knowing what Bermuda College is doing, I sit on a Barclay board. I'm a
Hold on a second, caller.
I'm a Barclayite, and so being on a Barclay board, it aligns with my brother's efforts at Bermuda College, right? And so if education is the key, we have to put ourselves and get involved, right? And I'm hoping that people take up that mantle and that the young people look to get involved as well, because getting on those boards and getting involved is actually where it starts, to the point where one day you can begin to be the chair and then push for the changes that you believe are right based off experience and exposure.
Yeah. Hello, caller. Welcome. You on the air.
Good afternoon, Colonel, and to your two guests.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm coming in probably some.
I heard.
Huh? You heard him?
Yeah.
I don't hear him now.
Oh. I cut him off. I didn't hear him at all.
Oh, I heard him through my headphones.
Sorry about that, caller.
May have to call back.
Call back there.
Yeah, but education is extremely important. But I think it's also about impact, right?
Yeah.
Is the caller back?
Yeah.
All right, then we'll take him.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome. You on the air.
I know you didn't do it on purpose, man.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
He had something funky going on with his earphones.
Hey, boy. What did I say? I'm very encouraged with what I'm hearing with the two younger gentlemen in the studio there with you. And one thing I want to do is encourage you guys. You could be a beacon light for some of our young men in our community, because from where I sit, it looks like what is available now for a young man to do as far as some sort of career or job or whatever going forward from now is a lot less than when it was when Colonel was growing up. much less when I was growing up. And moving into technical fields is something that a lot of people don't necessarily gravitate to that easily. I'm not sure exactly how you guys got into it. Maybe it's just something that you wanted to do. I'm not sure. I come from a technical field also, but not on the same side you're on. More on the electronic side.
Okay.
You know, starting out as a technician, bench technician, working on stuff, and going from there. For me, that was just something that I always wanted to do. You know, so much so that when I was 12, moving from primary school to high school, I talked up to my parents about going straight to technical school because I already knew what I wanted to do. And in my mind, you know, you had to go through all these different stages of education, and a lot of that, in my mind at that time, was to help you to decide what you want to do. So I figured, since I already knew I wanted to do electronics technology, I might as well just go to tech school. And then they told me that, well, even though you may have the want and drive and you know, you've learned some things, you're probably not going to have the qualifications to get to tech school. So that kind of burst my bubble there. As far as that part of it, not as far as going into tech, no.
Yeah.
Just from going from primary school directly into technical school, college, you know. Couldn't do it. But anyway, I like what I'm hearing, and I don't know, but I just wish I hope there's more guys like you guys around, man. Because we need to motivate our young people, especially our young guys, man. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys. You're more in touch with what's going on out there than I am. But do you agree, as I was saying, that over the years, it's like less things that are kind of, well, you could say naturally geared towards younger men going into, and the fields that women can go into seem like they're ever expanding.
Well, what I would say on that is that, you know, there are avenues. The pathways are there. I think it's matching the pathways with the interest or even the exposure that the pathways are there. And then what I want to say is, you know, I have two young ladies that are working with me, you know, at Tynes Bay. One of them is actually overseas right now doing power engineering, which has probably about 2% females in the field, and the males the three males that went with her to start the training, they came to me and said, she is our leader. She is the top brass. She's gonna be the one that's gonna lead us into the future. And the reason I want to make that plug is that there's a space for females in tech as well. You know, we have,
definitely.
You know, we have Akila Fleming, who would have worked for Colonel Birch, who was an E&I tech, who now works in the United States. Phenomenal. So the pathways are there. I think what we hear a lot of times is that, there's no one doing anything in tech. Well, that's not quite true. I think maybe we need to get out there and push the exposure more on what's being done, because the pathways are there. And I think we just need to kind of shift our kids' understanding of where they kind of should be looking as well.
I think from my perspective, when it comes down to the males in tech, you know, I work at Balco. We are probably one of the leaders in terms of, we are the leader in Bermuda in terms of apprenticeship programs. That's hands down, right? And I'm talking about in terms of just offering, right? We're very proud of that, and we take that on. I think what the caller is saying is that, you know, others avenues for apprenticeships, you know, open widely. I think there's a lot of challenge with apprenticeship programs. And like, for example, if you got an apprenticeship in a construction or a company that does, for example, electrical work, if there's not enough projects in Bermuda going on, there's apprentices. They start and then they have to stop, right? And I've seen a lot of that. And so there are some fundamental challenges that we have in terms of the sustainability of those things that we need to work on.
And then it's also just, you know, we've got to be real about it. It's also spreading up the pie, you know, to be honest with you, in that, you know, I've been approached by, you know, business people who do want to take on an apprentice, but if they don't have enough work coming their way, then they
That's what I'm getting.
yeah, they can't take on an apprentice.
Right.
So it's important that, we make sure that the people who have businesses have the work to kind of match to be able to take somebody else on and train them and build them up as well.
Yeah, there's also something going on in Bermuda where, when I look at the elder school gentlemen who have their own plumbing businesses and all these things that we hear about, these gentlemen didn't separate their hands from their brain, right? In this day and age, we have a cohort of thinking that thinks that technical means separation of the brain and the hands, right? And there's no separation, right? And so, man, I always heard, my son's go of his hands, right? Is he go of his brain too? Because to be in the technical field, whether you're a technician or other, you still have to have some very good problem-solving skills. And these elder school gentlemen, they had amazing critical thinking skills. When I go down to Somerset Cricket Club and I'm trying to do something for cup match, and an old fella comes
Mr.
around,
Bean putting up these scaffolding.
Yeah, comes around and they need to construct scaffolding and come up these intricate designs. This is a man with a brain. He didn't go to school for engineering and all that. This is a man with a working class brain that is at the level of an engineer, right? And that's what we need.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is a deterrent to particularly young black men in Bermuda is that there is far too much media coverage of the people that are doing negative.
Correct.
And so if that's your only source of information, you believe the sky is falling. Yeah. When in fact it isn't. There are tons of young people in this country that are doing amazing things.
Yeah, it is.
And could be living examples for their peers if the word just got out.
Yeah.
That's why you're on
That's
today.
Why we're here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, caller.
One more thing I just want to say.
Okay.
I think that one of the things that one of the gentlemen said there is exposure, and we need to expose. Like, most people are not going to know what's going on at places like Belco. Not really, So the more exposed people can get to what is actually going on there, as far as the different divisions, the technical side, and all that, then maybe that will drum up some interest. I started out as a bench technician, repairing stuff, and then it got to the point where it's uneconomical now to repair this thing or that thing, and I eventually crossed over into IT and got involved in that.
Yep.
So that, unfortunately, is another area where typically in Bermuda, men would get into as far as being, electronics technician, electronics engineer. But that's kind of going away. That's why I was saying, like, a lot of things that maybe young man might get into is kind of going away. Just you talking about gentlemen that had their own, electrical businesses and stuff. The Colonel would know about this, but you guys probably wouldn't. There was a time in Bermuda where, I think our neighborhoods, to a certain extent, are still kind of tight. People know people in the neighborhoods. It's not like if I'm in the States and, I'm in a neighborhood, I got 20 people and I don't know none of them because we don't communicate. We pass each other, we may wave your hand and that's it. I now forget I was up in Connecticut some years ago, and I was at my uncle and aunt. My uncle was a Bermudian, and my aunt was American. And I saw one of his neighbors, and I asked him, "Who's your neighbor over there?" He said, "He's been living there about 25 years. He don't know." Mm-hmm. That's definitely not Bermudian. But years and years ago, say I had a company that was doing electrical stuff, right? I would take maybe one of the young guys, or maybe a couple guys in my neighborhood, under my arm and show them the ropes and bring them along. And I would imagine that the gentleman you might be talking about that has the electrical business may not have even been to school for that, but he came through the system I'm talking about, where he was basically taught by those that were above him. And I don't know if that happens so much now.
No, not quite. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I do know is that there are a lot of young men around this island that are just idle. And I from what I know, my experience, that's really not a good thing.
Agreed.
So, all of us just could try and do the best we can. But I definitely want to encourage you guys, man.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear what you're doing because I didn't know some of the stuff you was telling me about. I didn't even know what was going on over there at Balco, But I know both you guys. I know your names, but I don't know if I know you guys. But your names are not too common. Maybe I've connected you somewhere along the way because I have had some connection in the community. And as far as even I did a bit of teaching as far as electronics technology in the schools. But anyway, I just that name is just sticking in my head.
Yeah, I'm sure our paths will cross. Thank you.
What's that?
I'm sure our paths will cross. Thank you.
Possibly in a place like Bermuda,
Okay.
And one more thing I'm just going to say, apprenticeship screens.
We do have 2 other callers that are trying to get in.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, thank you, caller.
Yeah, all right, bye-bye.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome you on the air.
Good afternoon. I would just like to say thank you to these gentlemen. And I really appreciate that you coming back to Bermuda. You have come back and you're helping.
Thank you.
Helping your country. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep going. Keep going forward like that.
Thank
You're
you.
doing really wondrous work.
Thank you very much.
We need more people like you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
You as
Okay.
well.
Right. Okay. Hello, caller. Welcome you on the air.
Comrades, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Afternoon.
Oh, good. 接后下 calling. The Princess Hotel calling. I'm looking to hire good people to understand analytics, finance, governance, integrity. Then an engineer that knows can't put two red to each other or two black to each other. Has to be reversed. Listen, I know how to last long. He killed himself. I appreciate it. It's not my fault.
Okay, caller. Thank you.
Okay,
All
bye.
right.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, I think, we appreciate the thanks. I think it's really about the village work that
Yeah.
you mentioned
Yeah.
and the impact, right? And so, I'll give you a good example, right? So I sit on, the Centennial Board, which is the old Bank of Bermuda Foundation.
Okay.
We know the beginnings of the Bank of Bermuda Foundation, right? But,
Hold that thought.
yeah.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome you on the air.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
I am just so proud of these 2 young men. I work with their mother at the Bank of Butterfield. They know me as Miss True.
Yes,
And
It's true. How are you?
just to know, I mean, their mama was hard on them, believe me. But I see results. I see the results. She did not play around with them.
She worked hard on everybody in the
Yes, she
country.
did.
Ah,
Oh, golly.
Good to hear
But
from you.
there's a lot of young boys leaving schools like my 3 grandsons left Work Academy. And so there's a lot of young men out there I want to encourage.
Yes,
I don't know.
and there is a lot of young people out there,
Doing
young
that.
men doing good work.
Amazing
You know,
things, yeah.
Exactly. It's just like we just keep lingering on the negative stuff and not bringing forward the positive stuff.
Correct.
But be encouraged.
Yes.
Oh, your mom would be so proud. Oh my
Thank you.
gosh, I can hear her mouth now. I'm sad she's not here to hear this interview, but she would be so proud.
thank you.
you,
Yep.
Mr.
Thank you,
Keep
Mr.
up the good work, okay?
All right.
All righty, okay,
Right.
bye-bye.
okay, what do we've got 15 or so minutes
Yeah,
left.
you tell us where you want to go
Huh?
with it.
What are we going to do about Cambrian College?
Interesting enough, so what Colonel's alluding to is relationships that we're trying to foster for technical education. So Cambrian College is one of those colleges that Bermudians who are interested in electrical and instrumentation work, power engineering, mechanical millwright work, that the government has a program that they send people to. Is interesting. because for power engineering, Canada has closed its doors to all internationals.
Actually, I would say the world is closing. So when it comes to technical education, every country is seeing it as its own path towards resiliency. So in the UK, we've had experiences in the last maybe 5 to 10 years where we've seen at least 3 technical schools in the UK closing down, right? Or if they're not closing down, they're saying, we only want to take British people in the form of tech because they have their own economic problems around technical education. And so we got
or basically the people who have the experience and the knowledge to do technical jobs. So the Canada put a pause on certain programs for technical education. So when we actually went to this year to go enroll some kids in power engineering, the response came back, you can't even get in the door anymore until, I guess, they got just a pause right now. But interesting enough,
so do we still have students there?
All our students, we don't have any students there directly right now. Most of our students graduated last year or the year before. So the goal was to send another cohort this year. We are sending some students in other programs, Millwright, and we will be sending some students who are apprentices in the government right now. But more importantly, Cambrian and Bermuda College are looking to make a relationship where we're looking at the possibility of Cambrian coming down to Bermuda during April and September to actually, there's programs, one of those programs that are closed off actually housing that program here in Bermuda for Bermuda College. And so people know that was the work done by Colonel Birch when we went for, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? So that relationship actually grew some real fruit in that they now, Cambrian College Technical School wants to partner with Bermuda College in order to actually send their professors down here to deliver technical education and to help our professors also get more experience and do some form of exchange. So we're still in early talks, but we're hopeful that the program will kick off in April 2027.
Excellent.
Yeah. What I would like to see is some sort of consortium in Bermuda around technical education where industry basically has a technical pool that they just invest in, like scholarships, basically. Right? And the consortium, it's not a matter of who gets which students, but rather you're kind of nation building and building the village because you're not exactly sure where the resources are going to go. It always goes full circle. Yeah. Some of the best talent that we have at Belco was trained by the government. And some of the talent that the government has was trained by Belco. But it all serves the same country purpose, is that we can function and sustain ourselves and be resilient. Yeah, that's what I would actually like to see, some sort of consortium. And I'm talking about from funding perspective, right? Because it takes money to run these type of programs.
So who would lead on something like that?
I would say the government and the biggest industry players. I would, without,
What leading on it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Again, and when I say we, I mean me and my brother. That's what I mean, because when I look at certain things, someone has to do something, and talking about it is not going to work. And the problem I think we have right now is that we need more people to take the same approach. Willing to step up and take the same approach. People are still doing great things and contributing in their professional fields, but in that village aspect, we need other people to kind of step up and kind of take the lead. Because again, you only have so many hands. When I go around Bermuda, it almost seems like the same people in different entities are kind of trying to hold things up.
I have a mentor from Trinidad who talks about technical education from down south, basically. And what he always said to me was, when people are trained, no matter who they're trained by, if you train them and they go out into the wilderness, right? And the wilderness is you train them and they go somewhere else. And the question he asks is who benefits? And the answer that he always gave me, very high level thinker, he said, the country benefits. He said, the country benefits. Just because you train them and they go somewhere else, don't think that that's a loss, because that knowledge comes back around. When you run, when a technical problem shows up, a number of different entities support each other on it. Whether it's we need equipment. Look at hurricanes. We all kind of jump in together to solve the problem and get the country back up running again. Right? That's actually what is required.
Yeah.
That's what's required with education from a technical foundational level. And so when we say we build infrastructure, people think that is something physical, right? Infrastructure is also, education is your biggest infrastructure, right? The concept, curriculum, all these things, that's infrastructure building. Putting the right people and the right systems in place, that's infrastructure. It's not just, so when we talk about engineering, we're not just building tangible physical things, we're building infrastructure across the country, and that's nation building and village building.
Capacity building.
Correct.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome you on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. I was just curious to know exactly what is tactical training, because, a lot of youth might not understand what that actually is. The first thing they're going to ask is like, what kind of job can I get with it, and, what is it? So maybe if you can break it down, so maybe get the youth more interested to let them know exactly what that technical training, what it actually is.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, caller.
Okay.
Thank you. We're talking about plumbing, carpentry, electrical. People gonna need the houses wired. Construction. Mechanics, auto mechanics, millwright, which is a combination of mechanic plus welding. So you have welding. So any vocational kind of field where you're kind of using your hands, and that's kind of where we need to kind of be stirring, more of our people. And it's not just young men, it's young women as well. And then you also have different levels. Then you have engineers, you have project managers. The country is vastly short of project managers. Surveyors. So these are all fields of entry into some form of technical careers.
And they typically require some element of basic mathematics that you understand, geometry and all these other things, measurement. If someone tells me, hey, I need a 3-foot door, I need to know how to measure 3 feet. I need to know how to read a ruler, right? Inches, centimeters, millimeters. We're not talking about high level mathematics. We're talking about basic things that allow you to operate inside of these vocational.
Yeah, to build a house, you need a plumber, carpenter, electrician. So these are the technical fields, and then there's levels to that. Like most people at my job who worked in the field, we call it electrical and instrumentation tech. Most of them started off as electricians. Mm-hmm. Bermudians would know that as an electrician. Mm-hmm. What I find is the challenge is that we have two challenges. One, we're not creating enough of these people to do just the technical work, and then the next level, which would be the E&I tech, the millwright, and things like that, our young people don't necessarily, not a segment of our young people who should be going to those next levels want to stay at just the electrician level.
And let me tell you why. They want to stay a lot of times at those levels. There's a thing about there's no opportunity. There's opportunity. The challenge is sometimes we get numb by money, right? Financial, right? There's a thought that if I and to acquire more knowledge, then I automatically need to get more money, right? The money typically comes, eventually. But the idea that, hey, if I go to this next step, what am I getting? What are you going to give me for that? At the end of the day, you're going to get something eventually. Yeah. But it's not about what someone's going to give you. It's already going to be earned, and that's your value, right?
And no one can take that from you.
And no one can take that from you, But I think sometimes we get numb by the financials, and also there's a barrier of, do I want to take the sacrifice that is required? Because if you're trying to acquire more knowledge and experience and exposure, there's going to be some sacrifice, either financially or time.
I find that's the biggest challenge I have with trying to get young people that I have to engage with. I get them there really, really quickly because they have to see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is usually, I'm in this position, let's say I have a job, but I really want a career. I've been doing different things, but I'm doing hustle work. Well, my thing is, how about you go up Bermuda College to, do a plumbing course or do this? Oh, no, I can't do that.
That's at night.
That means I have to,
stop playing football.
Stop doing this, or I can't give up this money that I'm got right now. And my big thing is, okay, let's make a plan around that. Like, I understand you need money to survive. Mm-hmm. I understand you may not have it like that, but you tell me you want to get to a certain goal, but you're not willing to sacrifice to get there. Most rewards come with some form of sacrifice. That's just success and sacrifice go hand in hand. And, what I would say is that Nadir and I had to sacrifice quite a bit. When our friends were all playing, when we were young, we were in the house studying. We still got to go out and play. It didn't mean that we couldn't play. It's just that we didn't play all the time. We had to sacrifice. And that went on and on and on. So even these things that I learned early came down to sacrifice. Do I make my kids sacrifice? Yeah, I make my kids sacrifice. And sometimes I work it where they're sacrificing and they don't even know. Do they have to sit and wait? Yes, they have to learn patience. Why? That's a little bit of sacrifice. Some people may think of that as
putting struggle.
Yeah, I'm making them struggle. No, I'm not making them struggle. I'm making them resilient to face the world later on. You see, that's the difference. And I'm doing it in little small spurts versus when they're 20 years old and they know nothing about sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And now they're trying to figure out what to do and they haven't learned about sacrifice. So again, we have to do building blocks on things.
Right. I want to know about New Wave Solutions Group.
So my brother and I, again, we started a consulting company years ago, just helping out small businesses, just to do mechanical and electrical engineering, mainly trying to help people who are in those positions. So, small commercial projects. I want to do a commercial kitchen. What we found was, you go to certain establishments, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for these things. A young entrepreneur who's trying to kick off a business for the first time, they may not be able to afford that. And, we have certain requirements from planning and things like that. So, that was why I started it. My brother and I, we actually had a bigger dream to do other things, but it didn't really pan out that way because we ended up realizing we actually have to hold space in the companies that we're in order to create more opportunity for more people. So it is just it's a side consulting company that we run and we do projects now and then. Most of the time, if we have time to do it, but most of the time is, can I help this person? How can I help this person? But it's more engineering, design, mechanical, electrical. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 hours flew by, didn't it?
Yeah, 2 hours flew by.
I didn't think it would.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
I didn't think it would.
When you know the subject, that's probably my easiest interview I've ever done. I didn't have to ask too many questions that just flew.
That's the Cheryl Wade and just talking. Cheryl Wade and
Anyway, thank you.
Call us a
they're not getting a turn today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And thank you for your contribution, not just to us, but to many that are seen and unseen.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for sharing this debate, because now we had a guide and we saw how it was done, and we put our own little spin on it now. But the recipe is a little different, but you add a little salt, a little bit, little something's different, but you don't have to.
And anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it.
Everybody can do it.
Everybody can do it. Yeah. Everyone can do it.
Just start by saying yes. I had,
Yes, and how can I help?
Where the country or no.
Yeah.
Start by saying, yes, we can.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming back on the airwaves.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. But we're making it through. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. We'll be back next week, Wednesday at 2:00.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.